if you are, who's going to audit those amongst yourself who are doing the auditing of the other members of the South African Police Service? Thanks very much. I'll pause here. If time allows, I would like to come on a couple of other issues. Thanks.
100% Honorable Ghana. Thank you. Honorable Schikkerling.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try not to speak so fast. Blueprint for safer communities, modernized policing, and a strengthened criminal justice system. But when you look deeper into it, it feels to me as though this policing system is still very reactive instead of preventative. We're measuring activity instead of outcomes, and there's still structurally constraints from delivering justice at a large scale. The DPCI, the detectives, the FCS units still remain severely constrained. Strained. We would like to know when we can expect these police clearance certificates. When, I mean, police clearance certificates are so far behind. I don't know if you'll ever catch. So far behind. I don't know if you'll ever catch up with it. Surely the higher ranking police officials should have these clearance certificates much quicker than normal South Africans. What I would like to know, please, is I'm really concerned about the forensic science labs. The APP confirms that the forensic science labs allocation declined in real terms by 1.26%, despite a 45% increase in case volume since 2021-2022, and there are ongoing DNA backlogs and infrastructure constraints. At the same time, the SAPS has admitted that it is relying on overtime to keep the system afloat, while the expansion projects are very slow and stalled. How can the SAPS claim to prioritize GBV and conviction-led policing when the very backbone of this evidence, the DNA ballistics toxicology, is effectively being defunded in real terms, and that is according to the APP? Then, Chair, the APP itself aligns with the SONA commitments to strengthen the response to GBV and femicide, including faster investigations and improved case management. Yet the performance framework, there is no clear disaggregated indicator tracking GBV. And I've asked this question before about the disaggregated indicators. There's no specific conviction rates. There's no turnaround times for forensic evidence in GBV cases. There's case attrition. Cases take 3, 4, 5 years. I've been in a forensic science lab recently, and there was DNA sample lying there from January 2025. We are halfway through 2026, and the DNA still hasn't been tested. That can never happen. I mean, that's completely wrong. So how does the SAPS continue to speak about GBV as a priority, but fail to include measurable outcome-based indicators that track whether victims are actually receiving justice? Chair, we know that detective services receive only a modest growth while carrying the burden of cases. The detectives are the ones that carry the burden of the cases. They carry the burden of forensic delays. They carry the burden of complex investigations. What is the SAPS doing to ensure that detectives can produce quality dockets, reduce case backloads, and improve conviction rates, particularly in complex crimes like GBV, organized crime, and repeat offenders? Operation Chanela and the sustainability thereof. I mean, we obviously welcome high visibility operations, but they're dominating the policing model at this stage. What is the SAPS's long-term strategy to transition from repeat high visibility operations to actual sustained intelligence-led prevention-focused policing? Because we just keep going back to the same thing, and there's no real follow-up. And then when I speak about intelligence-led policing, the policy framework requires intelligence policing, yet measurable indicators still remain limited. What proportion of operations are intelligence-led driven? How many target organized crime networks or repeat offenders? And how many result in successful prosecutions rather than arrests alone? Because there doesn't seem to be any cooperation between the Department of Justice and police. And if there's not a good working relationship, then we're actually not going anywhere. Chair, my last question is, the APP appears aligned to the NDP, the MTDP, the NPP, and the ICVPS. But the paper says the real question is whether this alignment translates into coherent, properly resourced and measurable system or implementation. What concrete evidence can the SAPS provide that this is more than just paper alignment and this is actually going to translate to arrests on the ground and a safer South Africa for all our communities? Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Schikkeling. Then I would like to hand over to the Honorable Mako.
Yes, no, thank you, Chair, and greetings to the Minister and the Deputy Ministers. And let me as well join the chorus by congratulating the Acting Commissioner. We hope that Acting Commissioner, you will form part of the happy family that we see here, and obviously deliver as per the mandate the President has given to you of fighting crime in South Africa and ensuring that there is justice for all. Chair, we also welcome the presentation of the annual performance plan that was presented here. And my question will be based on the staff capacity in as far as the recruitment of 5,500 members annually. And the presentation merely covers that you are setting it as a target that you will be recruiting 5,500 members annually. And my question will be, how does the department plan to achieve a 25% reduction in contact crimes while you are having a stagnant workforce that is sitting at 126,934 members below the ideal requirement? That's the first question. The second question will be, the FSL has achieved 0% of its targets for 3 consecutive years. What specific structural changes have been made to ensure the new 77% finalization target is met? And Chair, this go again beyond setting a 10% reduction target in civil claims, which specific disciplinary measures are being enforced against officers whose negligence leads to 813.4 million annual payout for unlawful arrests. Now, your APP targets the rollout of body-worn cameras and drones. Yet the internal analysis states this remain unfunded. The question will be, how will this be procured in the 2026-2027 cycle? And I think, Chair, I will come back if time permits. These were the 4 questions that I wanted to register in the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mokoena.
Thank you very much, Chair. Let me take this opportunity and greet our acting minister, both the DMs and the newly appointed acting commissioner. I wish you well in your new responsibility. Just want to check, why does the Crime Intelligence Division continue to report 100% target achievement while internal reports cite hollowed out capacity and significant security breaches? How will you comment on the effectiveness and reliability of that performance indicator? There is an 11 billion shortfall in the infrastructure budget, which police station project in the 2026 and 2027 list will be delayed or cancelled as a result. Following the AGSA's findings that 30% of result from your previous performance indicators were unreliable, what new pre-vetting mechanism has internal audit implemented for this financial year? I think this one, Mr. Ghana has touched it on lifestyle audit. I just want to check with you that how will you ensure independence of the lifestyle audit execution? Has the formal service level agreement with the special investigating unit been concluded to conduct the targeted lifestyle audit of the SMS members? I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mokoena. Then the Honorable Dereko.
Thank you, Chair. Greetings to the acting minister, the deputy ministers, and our acting national commissioner and the team and the members. Chair, my question is on the declaration of gender-based violence. Following the declaration of gender-based violence and femicide as a national disaster, what is a specific portion of budget that has been reinforced to address matters related to gender-based violence and intervention? Furthermore, how is this allocation going to be monitored to ensure that it has a measurable impact in terms of its implementation? And secondly, Chair, is on financial controls. In the last financial year, the department had an irregular expenditure. Can they please take us along as to, out of that irregular expenditure that they have accumulated, how much have they recovered from that? And is there any consequence management measures in place on funds that seems to have element of illegality? And Chair, the third one is on extortion. We have witnessed for many years now that, especially in provinces like Eastern Cape, extortion is very high. And the department, APP, seeks to increase the reporting of extortion cases to 10%, by 10%. Given the fact that the department's its own risk analysis highlighted the threat of violent retaliations, what concrete measures has the department have in place in order to protect the victims and the small business owners who come forward to report these cases? Does the department currently have enough capacity to protect the victims and the people who come forward with regard to this? And lastly, Chair, we'll also speak about the Operation Chanela. Will the department shift from reporting solemnly on the volume of arrests to also reporting to the convictions rate, so that at least we can strike balance in terms of the arrests and the end product of those arrests? Because the narrative that is out there is that people will open a case and then after 2 months, 3 months, you see that person free. But if we can get statistics in terms of how many cases have been opened and out of those cases, how many have been convicted, it will also assist to see the work of the department and also to account to the community out there and move away from this negative narrative of people being arrested just for formality and thereafter you'll see them loitering on the street. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable James.
Thank you so much, Jay. Good morning to the acting minister, acting national commissioner, the deputy ministers and the SAPS management. Thank you so much for the presentation. I want to start off with something that's very topical and nothing was mentioned about it, SANDF deployment. A complete failure, a big disappointment to us as South Africans. Why haven't we heard anything about that deployment? Minister's priorities as well as the SONA priority. And I'm really, really disappointed that nothing was said about it in your presentation. Nothing was said about the fact that we haven't had a single report since the deployment in terms of successes, in terms of informing South Africans where we are, what has happened, is it working, is it not working. If anything, since the deployment of the SANDF, there's been more deaths on the Cape Flats. If anything, it almost feels like a drive-by, like a wedding drive-by, where a couple is driving through the community and everyone is waving and smiling. There's absolutely no operations taking place. And I speak from a point of being present at these operations, Minister. I was driving behind 3 of these operations in different areas on the Western Cape for over an hour. And guess what? Not a single time did SAPS or SANDF stop to actually go in anywhere. They drove through the community, they smiled and they waved and they went to park, and that was the end. What is happening? We have allocated billions. We literally see only one SANDF, and sorry if I'm going to be stuck here for a while, one SANDF van with 8 members and 4 SAPS vehicles in hard-hit communities. And at this point, we're having more than 100. We speak about the vulnerable women and children. That is where your victims are coming from, the Western Cape. I want to ask, why don't we have, your presentation speaks to a whole of government approach. Why don't we have a whole of government approach when it comes to this intervention? What stops us? What are the challenges? Because it has clearly fallen flat on its back. Why haven't we included forensics in this operation? It's not there. There's no intelligence. We speak to the members that's part of these operations. There's absolutely no intelligence. They don't know where to go and where to start. And that's the reality. So please, can we have feedback on the SANDF deployment, why it's not working, and what next? I think that's the first thing. Also, the second thing, I'm not sure if we are creating duplicate roles or if this is a smoke screen or what, but can we please unpack the role of the newly appointed, I'm not even sure what role he's been appointed in, General Kwanazi. Can we first, before I ask questions on that, please unpack what that role entails? And then also, we speak to the vetting, obviously, what is unfolding in ad hoc and Madlanga Commission and our response. Counterintelligence. There's absolutely nothing in this report about counterintelligence that exists within SAPS. When it comes to detecting the risk, when it comes to lifestyle audits, what are we saying about counterintelligence? Are they there? Are they dead? And are they active? And what is the budget allocation for counterintelligence? Or is it no longer needed within SAPS? Because if we had an active counterintelligence in SAPS, we wouldn't be sitting here today with an acting minister and an acting commissioner. Then also, the reservists. Here we have thousands of South Africans that has given their time and that has served this country for years, that has gone through all the training. And we are duplicating roles. We are employing new people in those roles when we do have our reservists. What are we saying about that? Where are we with the reservists who still have those Purcell numbers on the system, who cannot even get grants because of that? We speak about, I think on page 31, youth, children, and vulnerable people. 47 million for youth, children, and vulnerable, and we speak about, prioritizing GBV, another SONA priority, 47 million allocated. And we speak about crime prevention. When there are hundreds of children on street corners begging, and our policemen are driving right past them, as if that's not a crime. What are we saying about children that's been abandoned on every street corner on the Western Cape, throughout South Africa? But we speak about a budget of 47 million. We speak about border security, 2.7 billion rand. Does this include scanners? We heard in the ad hoc committee about one scanner. What are we saying about detecting illicit goods coming through our borders? Do we have the relevant equipment to address it and to tighten border security? SAP's infrastructure. A couple of weeks ago, Chair, I visited the Hawks in Belleville, their office. Lord knows I wouldn't go to work. That building has been declared unfit many years ago. The morale of the members in that building is at an all-time low. Is that building part and parcel of the infrastructure upgrade? It cannot even be upgraded, must just be scrapped. These are the real issues on the ground. I'm going to leave it at that for now. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable James. Minister Kachalia.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you to all the members who've asked very helpful and interesting questions. And they certainly, as I've keep emphasizing my engagements with the Chairperson, that they are extremely helpful also to the ministry in identifying the issues that need focused attention. I'll try and address some of the questions, and then I'll hand over to General Timpane. Let me just start with some of the issues that Honorable James has raised, because I think that for this process to work, the oversight process, it's important that the agenda and the focus of this meeting is kept in view. So we were asked to prepare on the budget and the APP. And so we've had questions, for instance, about whether these targets are realistic or not. Those are helpful. I'll address all the questions that have been raised. We were not asked to report on the SANDF deployment. But the honorable member is entitled to raise that issue, and there are questions, legitimate questions, about how that intervention is being monitored and whether it is successful or not. It is successful or not. I think that is a matter that the committee should be focusing on in its work ahead. The deployment has just started. We as the ministry also working on how to monitor the implementation of the deployment of the soldiers who are not directly under the command of General Timpane. But I see that the SANDF has quite a lot of assistance from the honorable member, entering homes and so forth. Now, and it's certainly premature to make that kind of highly generalized observation about it not working. The deployment is for an annual period. And I would say, honorable members, that it's critical to understand that the deployment of the SANDF is not a panacea. We've never presented it as such. The critical question for the police is going to be how we use this period to improve the level of policing in relation to organized crime. And certainly the deployment of the SANDF was necessitated by the fact, by the recognition that we were not succeeding in dealing with the gangs, with illegal mining at the level that we need. And therefore, we should be having a conversation about what the government is doing to address this evolving challenge of organized crime. That is the critical question. The deployment of the SANDF is intended to create the space for us to develop and implement such an organized crime strategy. Now, as regards General Mkhwanazi, we have elevated him to a very senior role at a national level to deal with organized crime. So he will head up the Priorities Committee on Organized Crime in the Net Joints. The Net Joints is chaired by General Musikeli. that is the main operational structure through which operations are implemented. The politicians don't sit there. So the decision that has been made with respect to the appointment of General Mpane should be seen as part of an effort incrementally to strengthen police leadership at the top. So the way we are seeing it is that she will be leading a team. General Mkhwanazi is part of that team. Or General Musikiri is part of that team. And they have distinct roles, and their responsibility is going to have to work together as a team. Because this idea that you have one national commissioner that does everything is wrong. What we need at the top at SAPS is a collective leadership that combines the skills and attributes of a number of key office bearers, if you like any large organization. And may I say, there's no need to be angry about this. If you ask the question, we'll give you an answer. General Mkhwanazi's appointment has been in the media. It's not hidden. It's been publicized. And I hope that his appointment also at national level will be appreciated, because we're making decisions about how to implement an organized crime strategy. And a decision about leadership is critical. In the documents before you, there is also the focus on the DPCI, which you might want to think about as our FBI. General Nkosi is here. The DPCI, the commitment is to build out the capabilities of the DPCI also as one of the lead agencies fighting organized crime. Now, Honorable James raises the issue about children. This is a very important question, but the honorable members of this committee should know that this is why we need an all-government approach. You can't look at the SAPS budget and say, well, is enough money being allocated to support the development needs of children? The question should be, what is the role of SAPS in dealing with the enforcement issues impacting children, issues of criminality, and it's the same with GBV and H, on which I thought General Schnickeling, Member Schnickeling, yes, under my watch, it looks like there are going to be a few people who might get it. But you asked all the right questions about whether the targets and indicators reflect this commitment. It's the same with infrastructure, Honorable James. You know that actually the department is not an infrastructure department. We don't build police stations. We don't maintain them. So when you go around the country and you see places where there should be police stations and there aren't any, as I have, and you go to police stations that are not properly being maintained, the question is whether the current model of delivery of police stations and maintenance of those police stations is adequate. I don't think it is. And that's a challenge for the government. The stations are built by the Department of Infrastructure and Public Works. And we pay them to maintain those stations. Now, you must not misread me, members, to be thinking that I am now pointing fingers at another department. I won't do that. Because I know if I was the minister of that department, you would still have the same problem. It's a challenge that we haven't succeeded in dealing with over the last 30 years. So that is why we started a conversation with the Treasury about our approach to infrastructure. And it arose out of a conversation I had with Deputy Minister Matale, which is, if the current model is not working optimally, not like it's not working at all. I visited many stations, new stations. I was in the Western Cape over the long weekend and visited what do we call it? Not a pilot, the ones where it's a temporary satellite. It was a fantastic structure. I mean, for a satellite, really secure, because that's one of the problems we have with using the satellite option, that the police officers there may not be safe. But this was a solid structure. So we have started a conversation with the Treasury around PPPs, whether we can use the PPP model. One of the priorities in my conversation with the new acting national commissioner is to be the implementation of that model. And my understanding is that there already are 27 stations that have been identified by GTEC for the implementation of that model. But if that model can be implemented, which involves the private sector, it could possibly, I don't want to be making promises, it could possibly transform the infrastructure landscape of policing in this country. The current model is not working, and it's not working optimally. I think there's a planning problem. You go to many communities, you all know, colleagues, you go to a community, they've got a police station, but the community has doubled in size. The police station is no longer coping. There's a planning problem there. So let's not be also simplistic. Infrastructure is a huge and complicated challenge in this country around policing. But we are thinking about how to respond creatively and thoughtfully to that challenge. And that maybe the committee can invite us in a few months. I hope we'll be ready to report back on that initiative. Now, the members have all asked us the right questions about implementation. No one is just, I think we're all aligned here on the priorities, that these are the right priorities. And the priorities are embedded. I think that's what we should be looking for in this meeting. Are they embedded in the current budget? Are they reflected in the APPs? Are they reflected in the target? I haven't heard one member of the committee say, we don't agree with your priorities. And how did we do that? We engaged with the presidency for the purposes of the SONA. So president doesn't just make announcements. Then we adopted priorities, and I really have to express appreciation to the leadership of the South African Police Service for what they've done, because we identified those priorities. First of all, I have to make sure that me and the two deputy ministers are aligned. Then we took those priorities to the MINMEC so that we have an intergovernment, all government approach. And those priorities were then discussed with the Board of Commissioners, and they have taken the SONA priorities, the ministers' priorities, and made sure that in their internal budgeting and planning, those priorities are reflected. I believe those are the right priorities, and no one has contested that here. The questions that I think Honorable Ghana particularly and Honorable Sheikh Snickling raised the right ones, and I just want to go, spend some time on them, because the conversation we should be having here is not just a bilateral conversation between the committee and SAPS. It's a conversation involving the committee the SAP's leadership and the ministry. That's why I said that your questions are of enormous assistance to us because they're the right ones. On the question of detective rates, Honorable Ghana is right that if we can start to see significant reduction in the murder rate, that is universally internationally accepted as a good indicator of police performance and of that you're succeeding in general with the fight against contact crime. The murder rate is an objective rate, as you indicated. Now, we know for a long time, and that's why your spirit also of the questions are so important. I think that it may well be the case that the great majority of cases are not properly investigated. We know that victims of crime don't receive regular reports in many cases from the police. We know that our forensic laboratories are not functioning at the level that they should be functioning. And I'm greatly worried about the backlogs. And my understanding is that those backlogs are increasing, not decreasing. So I would also hope that the committee can call the board soon. I'm going to be engaging the board and ask them those questions. Because you're quite right. If we don't improve the training of our detectives, and General Timpane, General Zulu are here. They must hear the questions you're asking because they are the right questions. They're also my questions. I think we've got alignment in the budget and the APP. The question is how are we going to achieve these targets? And without rethinking, stepping up the training of detectives, without making sure that we improve the performance of the forensic laboratories, we're not going to achieve these targets. And when General Timpane made her opening observation, she said the issue is going to be around efficiency and effectiveness of the functioning of SAP. She gave exactly the right answer because we have to work within the existing resource envelope. All of you know the country's economy is not growing at the level that it needs to. You know that tax revenues are therefore under pressure. And you're all committed, as far as I understand it, at least in the GNU, to the current approach to the management of the country's finances. So the question is, we have to work within the budget, the financial constraints that the country faces. Because within those resource envelopes, we have to meet all the country's needs for social development, for the protection of our children, et cetera, et cetera. The question is, how does this budget reflect the priorities that the committee thinks should be our priority? Now, the reason that we're now re-emphasizing the importance of civilian oversight, and they're here, is that I think we got into this position over the last 30 years because we de-emphasized the monitoring, evaluation, and oversight role of civilian oversight. It's not going to be possible to turn civilian oversight around over time. There are good people there. They have some good leadership, but they have resource constraints. The same with IPID. We're going to be discussing that later. IPID is certainly not at the level where IPID, in terms of the resources, where it can ensure there's accountability. The question is, are we are we pointing in the right direction? Are we asking the right questions at least? So we have to emphasize training, we emphasize oversight to address the issues that Honorable Ghana and Honorable Smith asked So it's about HR. General Mkua is also here. I want them to hear the questions you're asking because I'm going to be asking them the same question. So what we have is a start. They are going to have to answer the question how we implement and achieve the results that we're trying to achieve. So yes, we have I don't know even if that's too strong, if we have a blueprint. We've taken some important steps to align. We don't have a blueprint yet. And I'm sure that you're going to be in your oversight role, even putting us all under pressure, especially those of us in the political process to say, what are you doing? What haven't you done? And I welcome the pressure, but I am saying we're at the beginning of this reset agenda. Reset. It's going to take years. I think we should start be thinking, not in a year, we should start thinking in the next 2 decades. Not like to postpone what we need to do, to take systematically, to take steps every year from now on to build the kind of police service that we're trying to build. And I agree very much with you. They all know it. I'm not thinking about the change in the policing model. I think visible policing has to be part of our ongoing strategy. I think our communities expect visibility, but you're quite right that visibility doesn't yield conviction. And we need an intelligence-driven approach. So we also need to manage a change in the policing model, which is what we're saying. And I think that that's exactly what we need to achieve in the next 5 to 10 years, that we have to change the model of policing, not by throwing the baby out of the bathwater, but by building upon what has been achieved, what is necessary. I mean, I think, for instance, we need street lighting. You know, the reason that I think we must strengthen community policing, patrollers and so forth, is that the visibility issue is important. The presence of law enforcement. I know you go to any big city and you see policemen on the street corners and so forth. It creates a sense of security, but it's definitely not enough. We need to implement a new policing model, not only to reduce the levels of organized crime, improve detection rate significantly. I don't think we've got 10 years to improve detection rates. That's what I'm saying. I think we have to show improvement year on year. If I don't address a question, it's because I'm not sure of the answer, and I'm sure that the team. But the issues, so GBVH, I just want to keep emphasizing. We are emphasizing the importance of this because we see the classification, the decision that's been made by the president as a call to action. Say what's happened in the last 30 years, what must now improve. And the law enforcement side, we are emphasizing. It's not a mistake that Deputy Minister Bushelu has been given this specific responsibility to ensure that the law enforcement picture changes by achieving the targets that we are setting. And she's already been hard at work. And I'm emphasizing that because to underscore the fact that this is a priority. And in the area of technology, another area that the committee is identifying, I think the department has to improve its ability to absorb new technology, to identify. We're now in the era of post-digitalization, in the AI. I mean, I don't think we have the internal capabilities yet, because this is a new, in a way, it's an evolving capability to see what law enforcement capabilities there are, as well as risks that come from the AI revolution. But we don't have to go that complicated. Body cams, drones, they've done well in the Western Cape. The Premier of Gauteng has has bought more drones, I understand, for us than we've been able to buy. But that's where other parts of the system step in and help. So I think technology is an area, again, the deputy minister has been to China, where they focused on this matter, whether there's a possible partnership with the Chinese. You all know that I think, you know, the Chinese have gone for surveillance too. They have cameras everywhere. And before I got into this portfolio, I might have said from a human rights point of view, I'm uncomfortable. But our society, one, is prepared, I believe, for more surveillance. If it means less privacy and more surveillance, and therefore more safety, that's the model they go for. And I visited that operational center in the Eastern Cape, run by AGRI South Africa. I know that there are different such initiatives in different parts of the country, also by SAPS. And I want to say to the National Commissioner, you know, I think we must tackle this thing once and for all. We need one big operational center which is properly equipped, you know, properly staffed, so that we have real-time data on where crime is happening and who's involved in this criminal activity. And it's an area we've been talking about for the last 30 years. There have been some initiatives, but it's time for some bold action. The lifestyle audit, the Minister of State Security announced after the SONA, or was it in the SONA that the President announced that the lifestyle audit will be carried out by the Department of State Security. We had already started my conversation with the National Commissioner then, General Masemola, because he'd already started implementing many of the conversations that we are currently having. He was working quite hard. And so all of this, I would say it was not something that, yeah, I am concerned about his well-being, even as he faces because he was carrying out his responsibilities faithfully. But in any event, we had started with the SRU to do the lifestyle audits. Now the SAA is doing it, but we have to make sure, General, that, I mean, how is it going to work? Will they be reporting to us? How do we make sure that they are also doing their work? Because we have an interest in ensuring that the lifestyle audits are carried out, but it's not in our hands. We are not doing the lifestyle audits. It's been done by the SSA. Financial controls, I leave that to General Zimpane. One of the reasons why she's sitting where she is that she understands financial management. And I believe that SAPS needs, we got into the situation because we messed up supply chain and financial management. And that has an impact on police performance. So those who say, no, you just need a cop's cop to run a big, complex organization like SAPS, really, with respect, don't understand what it takes to run an effective organization that has to do something. And if it has, whether it's manufacturing products or it's doing safety, that organization has to be well run and well managed. And it has to manage its finances properly so that resources are not wasted, resources are properly allocated, and so forth. The extortion question is an important one, Honorable Director. It's a growing problem. At least it's reflected now in where the focus must be. Extortion is a very difficult crime to police, but I also think that your observations about the protection of victims of the small businesses is a very important one to hear. It's not just about arresting the extortionists and the contortionists, it's about protecting those businesses that need to establish themselves and to grow and to be able to do business without being intimidated and extracted. So it is a focus, it will be a focus of the Nikonazi extortion, but I think this idea of protecting victims is very important. Now, I am rounding up, Chairperson. The right questions have been asked about conviction rate. But is that the target that SAPS, you're saying SAPS must adopt? Or is that illustrates the question about the importance of a whole government integrated approach to the criminal justice cluster? And I can tell you that we are struggling in that area. Because departments do work in silo. And I can't instruct the Department of Justice, nor can I instruct the head of the NDPP, who is independent, constitutionally independent, what targets he must adopt, what his priority should be. But of course, if you've just got an arrest target for the police, then that is what they're going to do. They're just going to arrest. So I think that the one way in which maybe the committee can also assist, maybe the committees in this cluster should think about a cluster approach also to oversight, so that the targets that are set for across the cluster can be the ones that are emphasized in the oversight process. Yeah, so I would like General Gimpani to deal with the matters that I haven't dealt with, Chair, if you don't mind.
Thank you, Chair. I think why I emphasized the implementation requirements that we have attached is precisely for this. And I agree totally with the questions and concerns and the comments from the committee. What will be required from us is the agency of dealing with this and accountability. A lot of things, honorable members, I'll touch on specifics and then I will hand over. Are things that have been there. They have been there. I think what has been lacking, for lack of a better word, is accountability in terms of this that we said we were going to achieve. I'll start with the question specific, perhaps from Honorable James. We don't have scanners, do we have money? We have provided for this. Even for this year, we have put money aside for this. The operational efficiency, how we do things, the procurement and acquiring of these things are things that has been happening that has taken long. So funding is put aside and we will ensure that we hold ourselves to account to ensure that those resources such as scanners that are required are procured at the right time and to ensure that we allocate to provinces to do their work. So funding has been provided. As limited as it is, it then says we need to be efficient in how we do things. We need to collaborate more. We need to ensure that there is no wastage. The issue of civil claims was raised. This is an issue. That is why we said elevate it to the APP, because it can be an issue that we talk about and there is no accountability. So you will see, Honorable Ghana, that somewhere we have elevated this thing of the civil claims as a result of unlawful detention, precisely because we want to monitor, hold those that are responsible to account in this regard. It was never there. And there is an area where there are a bit of leakages and we need to ensure that the relevant people are held to account. We also have a plan in place that is driven from legal services to also zoom into it. Is there a possibility of collaboration and corruption in this particular area of civil claims? So that is the main reason why we have elevated it to put it before us to ensure that we do not lose sight in terms of this. So operational efficiency, as well as accountability, and as well as understanding the goal that we have to achieve. All the things that must happen, as the minister has indicated, everything is on the APP, aligned to everything that the country requires us to do. It is upon us to ensure that we are performance driven and we hold ourselves to account in this regard. The issues of GBV, we have 1.7 billion set aside to tackle all the activities that talks to GBV. The 47 million honorable member is for proactive initiatives such as awareness and education on those crime prevention initiatives under visible policing. However, we do have a 1.7 billion set aside for issues that talks to GBVF. We have also topped up the provincial commissioners' allocations with an additional 50 million on their baselines to ensure that this is a focus area. So as limited as they are, the resources we have tried to spread. What we need is for us to be efficient, to be innovative in terms of how do we then achieve collaboration as well as partnership. General Sintumule will touch on what we are busy working on in terms of our collaboration with Business Against Crime to improve the efficiency within the investigative space as well as forensic investigation. There are targets that were not achieved within program 3. We have increased targets. The question is it impossible to achieve those targets? Where we are sitting, it is not impossible. Yes, we do have limited constraints, but we need to ensure that we then put systems in place to capacitate ourselves within the detectives. This is a priority area. The HR plan is talking to that, as well as the steps as well and plans that I have directed General Sintumule and the team to then focus on. So detective services, investigative environments are a priority, and we intend to ensure that we capacitate ourselves to achieve that we said we want to achieve. It is urgent. We need to ensure that the murder rate goes down. We need to unpack, working together within the justice cluster to ensure that those things are achieved in this particular regard. So there are funds that are put aside. We just need to improve efficiency. The issues of IT, there is a bit of funding, more funding that we have allocated, you will see, compared to last year. There's a bit of room to maneuver when it comes to issues of IT. Is it enough? No, it is not enough. That is why there is a need for us to collaborate. The minister has spoken about the agreements that have been signed. These are the issues that we are going to be zooming into to ensure that we completely overhaul and expedite the priorities within the technology management space. And yes, without taking away the challenges that we have in terms of our third-party arrangements, but these are the things that are doable, and we will be looking and monitoring those particular activities and holding the relevant managers to account in this regard. Issues of visibility, it is important. Yes, we have set money aside. We intend to recruit over 5,500, and I believe we will be doubling the number this year due to the backlog that we have in terms of recruiting these officials to join our ranks in this regard. We do have the capacity. We have set money aside in this particular regard. The issue of the SNDF deployment, as Minister had indicated, it is an area that we focused on. Even as early as yesterday, we have given directive to say, after a month, after 2 months, we need to come back. I want an analysis, I want a report. So General Musikidi and the team are working on that to address precisely those concerns, Honorable Member. And I believe soon we will be able to come back to the committee and report in this particular regard. So it's an area that I am putting focus on. Even yesterday in our priority crime meeting, we spoke about this particular issue, but General Musikidi is working on it and she could touch on that. The area of supply chain management is a priority. It will be a focus. We are collaborating with other experts within the Treasury to revamp and sort out the issues that are plaguing us. In particular, the issues of irregular expenditure, where it is deemed that there was an intention to commit corruption, all the necessary investigations are to be taken place. And this is an area of focus for now. in terms of our 10-point plan that we have put aside. So we will be focusing where we need external expertise, we will bring in those external expertise to assist us in this regard. The lifestyle audits, the minister has spoken at length about those. The process phase 1 is underway with SSA. All the lieutenant generals were instructed to submit. That process kickstarted in April. We have numbers that are with SSA already, including the appointment of new senior managers. We do not approve any new senior manager before SSA gives us an outcome. So the work has started. SSA is currently working on this. All the lieutenant generals, major generals at provincial level, this will be the provincial commissioners and their deputies have submitted. There is a team under the leadership of General Nkua that is monitoring and working together with SSA with the view that every or monthly we will then get a progress report in terms of how they are proceeding. But phase 1 has started, and we also have our integrity unit that is also focusing on other categories of employees. That is why on the APP, we do have a priority to capacitate our integrity office as well as all other oversight offices to ensure that we deal with this. So when it comes to senior management, phase 1 has kickstarted soon. I believe we will be getting results in this regard. It's an area that we are monitoring, working together with SSA. There are teams in place to monitor and manage this particular exercise. I've spoken about the issues of civil claims. Yes, it is a priority, and it will be an area where I monitor and submit continuous reports in this regard. What is required is efficiency in how we do things. What is required is innovation and more collaboration with all stakeholders so that we are able to then deal with our issues. Chair, I don't want it to be long. I want General Sintumule to touch on and give comfort on the plan that we have in place to capacitate the detectives so that they are able to achieve this that we have presented on the APP, because it is achievable. We just need to be urgent in how we do things and to monitor and to account for ourselves. The issues of training in terms of prioritization, the resolving of crime learning, it is on our training plan. General Zulu will touch on that. This is a priority. We need to ensure that we have sufficient detectives that are sufficiently trained. So the resolving of crime as a learning priority is on our training plan. We can also touch on that. Forensic capacity, yes, we need to ensure that we increase our footprints, and General Sintumule will touch on that as well. There is a forensic lab in KZN that we have launched. We have set money aside to ensure that that lab is fully operational in this regard. So soon this year, I believe we would have achieved that. There are processes in place to get that lab to be fully operational. And how we increase our footprints, we are having discussions with Business Against Crime. She will elaborate in terms of that. So we are ready. The implementation requirements are there. We will have to have robust monitoring and accounting systems in place. And we do have an idea from my side as well as the ministry and other oversight structures. How are we going to make ourselves to account? If we do not achieve, then we need to indicate why are we still here if we came here to present and we are not achieving that we are supposed to achieve. So the implementation requirement plan as per Annexure A will be a tool that we utilize to monitor and make ourselves to account in this regard. The funding is there, though not sufficient. We have tried to spread it according to these priorities, but innovation, accountability, efficiency, as well as collaboration with all the relevant stakeholders and other structures will ensure that we achieve this that we have presented today. If you allow, Chair, that I allow General Sintumule to touch on the detectives and the conversations that we are having with other stakeholders, and then General Musikidi on the other issues that relates to Program 2 that will include the SNDF deployment. However, we want to give comfort that we will come back to the committee to unpack this particular report, because I've given that instruction that we need to put together that report. Thank you, Chair. General Sintumu.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and good afternoon to, good morning to yourself, to the honorable members, to the Minister of Police, Deputy Ministers, and all colleagues in attendance. I have been listening attentively, and also I must say I welcome the concerns raised by the honorable members in relation to detective services. But what I also want to underscore is that we all recognize that this environment of detectives has over a period of time faced severe constraints in relation to maybe I wouldn't want to use the word understaffing, but your low levels of detectives as opposed to what we have as our docket cases in the system. And most of those will be more than 2 years. So I think that also coupled with your attrition that we have spoken about, the issue of forensic backlog also not assisting us in achieving our detection rates. This has prompted SAPS to have an approach in how do we deal with this situation, ensuring that we turn the situation around. And Honorable Ghana, this also informed why we felt, though the targets are high, we deem them achievable. I think this for us is a commitment which is ambitious, that says we need to push ourselves and have the resolve to be able to detect crime, particularly your contact crime and especially rape as well as murder. So in this regard, for the financial year 2026-2027, as well as this financial year, you can see in the APP that the capacitation of detectives has been prioritized, and this has been done through targeted human resource shifts. We've been given a number of posts, I'm going to talk to that, but also the issue of leveraging on technology, optimizing on processes, but also smarter deployment. And that talks to the 353 detectives that we have re-enlisted to focus particularly on murder as well as rape. In this regard, I want to say that in our plan, we then spoke about acceleration, placement, and re-enlistment. In the re-enlistment, in the capacitation, I think previous sitting, or actually I can't in this committee, we reported that we were given 4,669 additional posts for detectives. And I am glad to say, as I sit here today, of those we've been able to successfully place 1,978 detectives, which is 63 over our target. And these come from our previous intake. And in the incoming intake, we have already identified 1,554 detectives, and those will be placed once they are done with their workplace exposure experience. And also we have been given, as I said, 353 posts for re-enlistment. These have only been prioritized for 4 provinces, KwaZulu-Natal, Eastern Cape, Western Cape, as well as Gauteng. And they have been employed particularly to deal with the issue of your murders as well as your rape, which are 2 years on and over on the system. We also were given 1,000 posts for lateral transfers. This is where we face challenges. Of those 1,000 posts, 505 members have been successfully placed. Our challenge here is that our members view this as a transfer mechanism. For example, if they want to move from province to another, they then use this. As a result, we have re-advertised the 495 posts out of 1,000, and we are also earmarking these specifically for members who will assist in dealing with your detective case backlog. If I then move on our relationship and partnership with BAXA, this is specifically aimed at leveraging on technology, but also ensuring process efficiency and effectiveness. The key components of this talks to your digital case management and automation, forensic and scientific support optimization, intelligence-led and predictive policing, as well as your drone and helicopter deployment. We have got 5 pillars in this particular partnership, and that talks to your police station modernization, technology, airborne support, forensic services, and as well as detective capacity. If I may look at the focus areas, this is what we are moving towards, Chairperson. We are going to be automating functions that are not are non-core at the police station, and we are going to leave the police station to actually focus on your crime issues. In this regard, we are going to be piloting, I think in the next 3 months, your digital statements, digital docket, case triaging and queue management at a police station, also utilization of digital tools, platform, data system, as well as a supporting infrastructure. Again, Honorable James, just to also put you at comfort, we are looking at rehabilitating the infrastructure that deals with your GBV, particularly your victim support centers. If I move forward, Chairperson, as I said, the initial rollout of these modernized police stations is targeting, at least for starters for this financial year, we are targeting 50 stations. But by the end of 2027, the target is going to be 100. And this, I must say, initiative is headed by the banks, particularly FNB, as well as Vodacom and Standard Bank, who are assisting, I think it's NetBank, sorry. And these are aimed at transforming service delivery through upgraded community-centric facility. If I may also, enlighten the committee, we are going to have what we call digital zones, Chairperson, in each police station, where people won't have to go to a police station for non-core services, but those will be on a side which is going to be a digital zone, and they can be able to access your statements, your affidavits, your certification. So these will not be done at a police station. So the police station will be purely for serious crime issues, and then the digital zones will be able to migrate those non-core policing functions. And I think the first, as I mentioned, your police clearance certificate will not be done at a station, affidavit creation statement, drafting, accident reporting, those will be done in that digital zone. And our second pilot will be looking at, again, easing the burden, Honorable Ghana, on the detectives over and above the docket load, the issue of administration, data capturing. So this will, the second pilot will look at your full docket digitization, as well as also full digitization of your firearm permit system. I'm not sure, General Muteti, if I can move forward. Sorry, General Dimpane. But also in terms of forensic science laboratory, our biggest issue again is that we have got volume of exhibits that we receive. I think for the last financial year, we received almost 800 exhibits, and that is inclusive of ballistics, DNA, as well as chemistry. However, the infrastructure is now really compromised and it is under severe constraint. The only thing we need to do now, and we are doing so with speed, is to expand the footprint of forensic science laboratory. If we don't do that, we will forever be lamenting on your increasing boxes in the passages, and also samples that have been sitting in passages for a while. So in this regard, we did report previously in this committee that we engaged the CSRR. That agreement is almost completed. It is now with our legal services, where we are going to migrate your reference samples. So all your DNA samples that relate to your Buka samples will then migrate to CSRR. And if you look at our statistics, that is basically 90% of what we generate from DNA. And these are intelligent samples that also go into your NFDD that is monitored by the DNA board. But also in our meeting with the presidency, Mr. Kule, to be specific, as well as I think Dr. Morphe from Science and Technology, we are also looking at further expanding to other laboratories that are owned by government. So that meeting is taking place this week. There are laboratories that are already capacitated that we can also leverage on and try and offload some of our functions, particularly from Plattekloof and Arcadia, to be able to at least ensure that our laboratories are not under strain. And in this regard, we have been given 293 posts by General Nkua. These posts have been identified through the current pool of constables who all have the relevant science qualifications. I think, Chairperson, I will stop it at that, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, General. Honorable Adams, you keep waving at me.
Sorry, Chairman, as indicated, I have to catch a flight, I have to
Uh,
leave.
Yes, would you
Um,
like to say something?
I just have maybe 2-3 minutes.
Okay, is it okay? Can I grant Honorable Adams, committee comfortable? 2 minutes.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, SAPS. Thank you, Minister DMs. I welcome to the new position, Acting Commissioner. I can imagine it's going to be a testing situation. Just on the budget, man, I might have missed it because I had to take an urgent call. I didn't see any real provision for the capacitation of the AGU. And I think that consistent oversight by SAPS management is the reason why the army had to be deployed. And even though we agitated against it, those of us who live the reality of the Cape Flats, the army was deployed and much fanfare was made of it. And like I told you, the violence was going to spike. Now, that is not the fault of the South African Police Services. It's a knee-jerk reaction from elsewhere. But be that as it may, it's what we deal with. I just have a few questions and just a little bit off the agenda. The suspension of the National Commissioner because he was criminally charged. I just need to know why General Kumalo is still allowed to act as the head of CI. He's in the exact same position because I don't see any consistency in acting minister. That's the one thing. And then the second thing was the Telkom Towers, which is listed as the official headquarters of the South African Police Services. So R500 million worth of waste. Someone's head has to roll for that. So I'll just ask, because this is a financial meeting, if we can have some type of answer over there, please, man. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Chairperson, for indulging me.
Thank you, Honorable Adams. General Minister, sorry for the interruption. Thank you, Honorable Adams. General Musekidi.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Good morning to all. Good day to yourself and to honorable members. Let me stand by the established protocol, observing the presence of the Minister of Police and the ministry was represented here, and my colleagues from IPID. Chairperson, I think there are few left in regards to Operation Chanela that I will want to respond to. The first question came from Honorable Shikeling, as well as Honorable Direko, in regards to us communicating particularly on the issues of Operation Chanela, and I think one area is the dominance of South African Police Service insofar as Operation Chanela is concerned. Just to indicate that the focus of the operation is mainly on prevention and combat. And Chairperson, I want to indicate and reiterate the fact that with all the operations that we undertake, particularly on Operation Chanela, it starts with intelligence collection, verification, and dissemination to the operational units before operations are undertaken every week. So it might not be sufficient, but we do collect intelligence. I think one question that came was that we still see on the APP that crime intelligence achieve 100%, but when you look at the operational environments, we still have challenges. That is the emphasis, and we also look at different dimensions that Operation Chanela needs to focus on, and what targets do we have. So in terms of the further question, Honorable Shikeling, on how many target organized crime are we having in collaboration. Operation Chanela is a multidisciplinary and multi-dimensional operation that we undertake. So we do not leave any department out, Honorable James. We work with all the departments, and where we need to collaborate and assist other departments and them assisting the South African Police Service, it is done within these operations. The operational plans are disseminated to National Operational Center, where we also do the evaluation every week after the operations to look at whether they were targeted, and if not targeted, whether they were efficient, and if not, we advise the provincial leadership, starting from Sunday when we do the evaluation, including when we meet with the whole of SAPS management every week on Monday to do the evaluation of the operations and advise accordingly. In communicating, Honorable Direko, we do not only report on the arrest, but yes, the numbers of the arrests are high. What we do as well on the Monday priority crime review meetings, we do get reports on the level of case management, what happened to those persons that were arrested, the whereabouts, and once a month we took the holistic assessment of the persons, which it's presented to us by General Sintumule and the team, because we find that we really need to zoom and dig deeper in terms of the whole criminal justice value chain, what happens to the people that we take to court, the whereabouts, and how far are we going in terms of the conviction rate. So those are the things that we are evaluating. There was a question on the extortion, Chair. I think it came also from Honorable Direko. In so far as the extortion is concerned and the fact that it's increasing, what reports that we get, because we do over and above the crime evaluation meeting, we also have the provinces that has established their own toll-free numbers. We also have the national toll-free number that General Sintumule and the team are monitoring. 80% of the reports that comes to these toll-free numbers are not necessarily cases, but those that goes to cases. General Mohale, on the monthly basis, we look on how many reports that came through the extortion hotline, how many resulted or ended in a case docket, how far are we with the investigation of those case dockets, including the conviction rate in so far as the extortions are concerned. The other question is the protection of victims. The establishment of the toll-free number was precisely to also protect the identity of those that, because we realize at first that people are afraid to come forward, especially those that are on construction, those that are working with the tenders. They are afraid to come forward to report, hence the toll-free number, and the cases will be investigated as such by the detectives with that anonymity, and make sure that they are not exposed, or their safety is also protected. The other issue, Honorable James, is on the SANDF deployment. I am smiling because though, Chairperson, we might have went a little bit overboard when we were doing the introduction of the team here in the Western Cape. And I'm glad that you were with me, Honorable James. It's still not even a month to do a proper evaluation and assessment of this particular team. You need a time frame so that you can look at what happened yesterday and what is happening now. So the reports that I'm having, as the acting national commissioner have indicated, I look at the period same time last year and same time holistically looking at the whole Western Cape, because the intention over and above the 27 stations that we have identified, we have 17 of those that are prioritized as gang stations in the Cape Cape Town area alone. And out of this 17, I can indicate that on a daily basis, we are able to deploy to all the stations using both the Operation Prosper, and where Prosper cannot achieve, we augment those teams with our own lockdown 3. So we do have 2 teams that are operating here in Western Cape to make sure that we cover other areas. And the results that I'm having, Chairperson, although significantly we cannot, one murder is one too many. But if you look at the numbers, same time, this period and compared to now, there are stations that are fluctuating where you will see a decline, but in general, there is a decline. There might be still numbers that are reported a week, but when we look statistically, we still have decline. I think the question that will come is, out of the reported, out of the murders, what do we then do? Because it does not only end with the prevention. Prevention goes with the detection. When we detect, which I think colleagues spoke about, when we do that detection, how many do we arrest? How many do we take to court? So these are some of the issues that we are still working very hard on with our detectives to say we cannot only look at the numbers that are declining, but that one person or those 2 people or the 3 people, because of late we find the multiple murders, and we know that in the gangs is multiple murders, so we need to do the inroads. Again, is the issue of intelligence. I think Honorable James further spoke about the counterintelligence, but here you need the real intelligence that must be collected. So part of the lockdown 3 was to identify a certain group of young intelligence collectors as and when we are introducing them to the work, but that goes to training. So what General Sintumula was doing was to make sure that we train and build this capacity to make sure that when we do the intervention, we do the intervention with this team that will not be known even by myself. I don't even want to know them, because all that I want is that collection, is that analysis that will give effect to the operations on the ground. I will very quickly highlight on the issues that the Acting National Commissioner already spoke about in regards to the border security, to also emphasize and indicate that in the border management space, it's multiplicity of departments that are operating. I think the question was very specific in terms of the scanners. Yes, we will put aside a certain budget to address the issues of equipment, looking at holistically how we deal with technology policing within the borders. But then I need to indicate that because we have basically 4 main departments that are operating in the border space. We have South African Police Service, South African National Defence Force, in terms of the fencing and our border. We have BMA that is physically at the border gates to ensure the movement of people, illegal movement of people and goods. You have the South African Police Service and SARS in terms of others, but you do have other departments. So what we are looking at, I think we last week we had a meeting, we call it a technical border management meeting that reports to the IMC on border management, to also expand and look at a triple P in terms of resourcing the border management and technology policing, not police, policing in the border space. But in terms of buying the equipment, if SARS buy equipment, we are not expecting SARS to do the same, or BMA. So it's that collaboration on what type of technology that will all of us operating in the space be able to implement, interface, and work together, so that we do not end up as the same government having to duplicate resources, but how do we assist one another in that space? We still do have a very critical role. I know there is a discussion, Chairperson, we were supposed to even appear before a joint committee in terms of the border management. So I must say, as the South African Police Service, we do have the responsibility in terms of Section 205, 3 in terms of us operating in the space. We do have the responsibility as well in terms of Section 199, 7. And lastly, from my side, there was a question, a chairperson that talks to the children and the removal of children. When we do this, we align ourselves with the multidisciplinary approach, number 1, 2, but what law dictates, what are the provisions of the law, I think specifically was on the issues of removal of children that are loitering. We have key departments in every area. We have the Department of Social Development that must lead when we get to other issues. There is a Department of Education where it gets to the issues of children being at school. We have obligation and responsibility in terms of Section 2053, in terms of Section 110 of the Children's Act as the South African Police Service to ensure that if such is detected, it's reported accordingly to a relevant department and the removal is done. Chair, we do not just remove, because the question will be remove to where, but we're working collaboratively with the department to ensure that relevant forms, I think Form 4, Form 5 are completed. And when completed, there is an identified either a greenhouse or a wide door where the children should be removed to. So you do not just come in and remove, because children cannot be forcefully removed. Constitution provides as well that in every action that we undertake, we need to do that at the best interest of a child. So we do not just intervene where we are not supposed to be intervening. Hence, Chairperson, we are also signing number of MOUs with different departments. We have done that a year or half ago with the Department of Basic Education, where we are looking at the collaboration between these two departments so that we do not get into the space that will eventually be in violation of the same laws that we are trying to enforce. So we will continue to collaborate, we'll continue to work with other departments, and we have different priority committees that we look at depending on the vulnerabilities of certain sectors and dimensions when we are doing this. We have also incorporated the issues of vulnerable groups, women and children within the broader organized crime plan, so that we do not have, or we do not divert into looking at the issues where vulnerable groups, children, and crimes against women are concerned. So we have incorporated that so that we are going to be monitoring all of them. If all goes well, I think, Chairperson, we have submitted our first report in this regard to the IMC on GBV, and I'm hopeful that this time we will have an active reporting to NSP, because NSP is still very alive, much as we have obligation and responsibility to report to the IMC as the GBV NAD joins. That includes children and vulnerable groups. We also have the responsibility to report to our civil society group that were part and parcel of the NSP to make sure that that monitoring and those identified 6 areas, insofar as the South African Police Service is concerned, monitored, and all the time we are reporting on our responsibilities. I said last, but there is the issue of reservists that were highlighted, Chairperson, which I thought the acting Deputy National Commissioner will highlight in terms of the recruitment. I think over years, Honorable James, we had issues on the reservists. Basically, when the concept was adopted, it was looking at volunteerism in terms of a reservist policing is concerned. In order to ensure that there is a stipend paid, it works on the call-up instruction. So there are activities that reservists will undertake as a volunteer work. There are activities that they undertake in terms of a call-up, and they will receive payment for the call-up that happens. But on the specific issue of recruitment, I think my colleague will reiterate the fact that we have had numerous dispensation to look at our reservists, those that are qualifying, because we cannot again run the risk of incorporating a person that is not 100% qualifying. There are prescripts that were set, there are a criteria that was set in terms of reservists to qualify, and all those that were qualifying, I can assure the committee that they were taken in, they were taken to training. Those that are not complying, others were sent back on the remedial, and they will come back. But I think the dispensation that we are having now, there was a moratorium in recruiting of reservists until we clean up this space and see what type of reservist policing we require in the service, so that we do not find ourselves sitting in the same problem where we cannot incorporate people into the service that are not qualifying just because they are reservists. But Chairperson, I think so far we have put a hold into a new recruitment until we clean up the system with those that we are having. I thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I think we have covered majority of the questions. Safe to touch on Honorable Adams' questions. The capacitation of AGU. This is on top of our priority, Chair. We have spent around 200 million in terms of expenditure on these units, in particular in 4 provinces, that will be Western Cape, Free State, Eastern Cape, and Gauteng. However, the conversation I'm having with management is we need to use these units as an exit strategy. As we exit in terms of the ongoing operation, we need to ensure that those AGU units are capacitated. So there will be an analysis. This is on a priority list that I've had a conversation with management, in particular in Western Cape. So we will be having a strategy to analyze the current capacity. Is it giving us what we want? Is it capable to assist us to sustain as we exit in terms of the current operations? Because we need a sustainable strategy to deal with the issues of gangs. So this is part and parcel of those issues that are on our table as a priority. The issue of telecom towers, it is a matter that a forensic investigation was sanctioned by DPW. We are yet to get the outcome of this, and I believe if there was any wrongdoing and anything has to happen in terms of those that were involved, that particular report will assist us in this regard. I think we have covered everything. I'm not sure whether the minister will touch on the other issues, but I believe these are the questions that are on the table. Work is to be done, and it is to be done efficiently. All these that the colleagues have explained are there. We just need to improve how we deal with things, how we improve our efficiencies in this regard, and we are ready, Chair, to deliver in terms of this that we have presented before the committee. If I have left out, perhaps the minister will wrap up in terms of this that we have presented, Chair, but I believe we have captured a majority of the questions that were on the table. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, General. Thank you, Minister and the team. I'm going to give another opportunity for the members to have another bite. And then after that, we're going to try and make sure that we finish before lunchtime. We will have a brief break, and then we'll start with IPID. So that is the aim. Honorable Garner, I've already noted your hand. Honorable Schikkeling. Let's start with you, Honorable Garner.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate the energy that's displayed by the acting national commissioner and the deputy national commissioners, and in arguing that the targets will be achieved. And I want to give the team a chance to achieve the targets, even though everyone accepts that they are high. But one of the things that I did not hear, it's around the retention of detectives. Because on average, I think the detective service is losing no less than, on average per month, no less than 300 on average. That was the official response that we received. So that's the first thing. The second thing, it's the reputation of the South African police service at the moment. It's at the, we can agree that it's at an all-time low. And one way of changing the reputation, it's through the work that's being done and how the members conduct themselves. One of the big frustration, it's around, I think Minister, we're talking about visible policing. The availability of vehicles to, just for visibility, but also to respond to matters of criminality. Because what I see, what you should try to balance, it's the community when a crime is committed, they would like to see an immediate action, which then might then encourage the police to go and arrest without investigating, which then leads to the civil claims. Because if we don't do, maybe this is a question to say, in the interaction with the CPFs and communities, how do you then explain that in some instances the arrest might be delayed because we need to ensure that the correct culprit is being arrested, because we are losing too much money on civil claims. So let me come to this lifestyle audit. So it is in your performance, it's there, it's listed, but then you say that is the SSA that does it. What then becomes the role of the police in this particular instance? Is it the referral? Is it yourself as the national commissioner referring to say, these people need to go for lifestyle audits? And then, because you are not in control of the pace at which the SSA works. How are we to assess that this particular objective is being achieved, so that we can do our work correctly? Because so I hear the points around not hiring, let's say at the senior level and so forth. But here's the thing. So a permanent appointment requires vetting, né? But an acting appointment does not. An acting appointment does not. So you can have a situation, and you might very well have that situation, where the people that are appointed to act in a senior role, they are making decisions on a daily basis. You can't appoint someone to make a decision, but then you say they can't make the decision. The people that get appointed into that senior role, in an acting capacity. And in some instances, the acting takes long because the person that's being suspended, their cases take long. Now, this person has been acting for 6, 7 months to a year, more than a year, but they themselves haven't been vetted. How do you then balance that? Because the decision still needs to be made. Even if you say we are not appointing permanently, you are appointing acting people to act in those positions, and they take decisions. And as in my earlier input, I mentioned that the acting national commissioner, Pahlane, was suspended from an acting capacity because he was promoted without the vetting. What is maybe the point that we need to think about is what is the surface level vetting that South African Police Service needs to do? At the surface level, yes, there's the work that the state security agents needs to do, which takes time in most instances. But at the surface level, what is being done? More so in the supply chain. Because you can't listen to what's happening at Madlang and so forth and say that no, the supply chain will wait for state security agents.
2 minutes, Honorable Honor.
So that is the points that I wanted to raise. The last one, Chair, I was looking at the cost of the police stations and the time that it takes. If you were to look at the start of the projects, the average time that it takes to complete the project is just far too long. I mean, like you've got Tafelser, for instance, in the Western Cape. At the moment, is the most expensive of the police stations that are to be built. I think it's costing 146 million. And the allocation this year is only 9 million. By the time that the police station is completed, the total cost will have gone way overboard because it's taking us on average 7 years from the start of the project to the completion of the project. Yes, accept that it might not be your direct to say it's you, but what is, because you are the one who requires this service. At the end of the day, you are the one who are going to pay for this. How are you ensuring that the time it takes to build a police station, including the satellite police stations, which are required, as you said, Minister, that in many instances, by the time that and I think you wanted to give an example of Deep Slot. By the time the police station was completed, the population of Deep Slot had increased so much that the capacity of the police station was inadequate. And the last one, Minister, because you come from the business school, don't you think the time has come to actually send every one of the senior managers of the South African Police Service back to school on leadership and management, but also on PFMA and ethics? There are just too many people who are suspended on account of PFMA, on account of ethics, and on account of leadership. I would think that being a professor from a business school, that should have been or ought to be your top priority. That the men and women that are sitting here in front ought to be enrolled, talk to the business school, let them go back to school on matters of leadership, management, ethics, and PFMA. Because we don't want to, tomorrow we say, no, we interacted with them, and then they are suspended on account of ethics, on account of PFMA. I think it ought to be mandatory, over and above the work that the State Security Agency is doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Ghana. Honorable Schikkerling.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, you know, if I listen to the SAPS today, it does feel to me as though there is some form of information from you that you want to rebuild and restore the SAPS, and it's commendable, and we thank you for that. But you know, when I look at you sitting here, all of you, most of you are higher ranking police officers, and you're all dressed very neatly and you're all writing with nice pens and you look nice. But that's not the lived reality in a police station. When I do visits at police station, oversight visits, your police officers are not dressed properly. They don't have name tags on. Some of them don't even have pens to write with. And part of the problem why they don't have pens to write with is because your supply chain management system is corrupt. If you don't put in 6 quotations for something simple like pens or light bulbs or cleaning material, and it takes a long time for it to get approved, the process starts all over again, which means they don't have access to basic things that they need: toilet paper, pens, books. This is completely unacceptable, and I really think that is why you have to decentralize supply chain from Pretoria to provinces so that they can cut the red tape. If they need a tire, and that is one of the reasons why we have so many vehicles standing, because it's small parts. They need a tire, they need a mirror on the side, something like that. But it takes months for them to have this approved through the supply chain management system. Why can't we just make sure that we devolve these powers to provinces? It's very unnecessary. I want to use an example of the K9 unit that we visited. And I must say we were pleasantly surprised when we visited the K9 unit. But they can't purchase dogs. They have 97. You have place for 1,001 dogs. They can't purchase dogs. There's 97 because the BEEE regulations make it so difficult for suppliers to supply dogs to the South African Police Service. So you would rather, instead of supporting a South African company, you would go and look overseas and try and purchase a dog from overseas to come to South Africa, which costs 3 times the amount. That doesn't make good business practice. It doesn't make financial sense at all. I cannot understand why we would do that. And I mean, if I look at something that I think seriously has to be addressed, is the police training colleges. If we don't fix our foundation phase, it's like going to school and looking at children in grade 1 and grade R. And we don't fix our foundation phase, they're going to get to grade 4 like they are now, and they can't read and write for meaning. And that's exactly what's happening in our police training colleges, because our police training colleges are not equipped to ensure that we're giving the correct caliber training to these recruits. We taking in 5,500 new police officers yearly, but our attrition rate and the rate at which people are leaving is actually higher. But again, I want to use a simple example. I was at a police station to assist somebody, and I must say they were very good after I was there, and they really did assist me. But to complete a docket took almost 2 hours. And it's because they're not trained properly. They don't know how to complete the paperwork, and that comes from your police training colleges. It can never be that we can take an affidavit or a statement from somebody, and because we can't translate it properly because the dockets have to be written in English for court purposes, we lose what's happening in the translation, and it takes 2 hours to help one person. I mean, that's 2 hours that could be spent on something else. So our systems have to definitely improve. And then, Minister, you yourself now said that the reason why General Mkhwanazi and General Mosekile are going to work together is to diversify and disseminate responsibilities, and I think that's good. But honestly speaking, we now at that point in South Africa where we have to expand policing powers to provinces that are capable to do it. Clearly, holding all the power in Pretoria is not helping us anymore. It is not assisting anybody. It is not assisting South Africans, and it is something that I think we have to address with urgency to make sure that we can necessitate and capacitate the SAPS in provinces so that they can run I want to say a Rolls-Royce performance in every province instead of having a broken down Golf, if it makes sense, just so that we can improve on what we're doing. Because if we don't change change these things, nothing is going to change. And my last question, Chair, is just on the limited integration in the criminal justice system. There's no shared performance indicators and accountability mechanisms that exist across the SAPS, the NPA, justice and correctional services. And who is going to be held responsible when cases collapse along these lines in this chain? Because we see it almost on a daily basis. The police arrest somebody, in 2 days' time, they're out on the street again. And that is making your work more difficult, and it is making South Africa less safe. So can we please just have clarity on that? Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Schikkerling. Any of the other members? The Honorable Director, you can start, and then Honorable James.
Thank you, Chair. When the minister was responding, he raised a serious aspect with regard to intergovernmental relations, which seems to be a challenge in the justice cluster. So is there any specific mechanism which can be put in place in an administrative level in order to address that matter of the intergovernmental relations within the justice cluster? And secondly, Chair, on the issue of extortion, I've heard that the department has established both provincial and national call center. And I would also want to check on the side of the department, is it value for money? Is it bearing positive result? If we can also get clarity on that one. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable James.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to go back to crime prevention. Now, we cannot have, what concerns me, General Mosekile, is we cannot have a budget of 47 million when it comes to protecting women and children, and there's no enforcement, I think, like the Minister said. I understand earlier on when you referenced Section 10 of the Children's Act in terms of whose responsibility it is to act where children are in direct danger. We also know that there's a national instruction basically for SAPS that allows SAPS to actually respond to these cases, especially when it is after hours when you don't have social workers. Now, I'm also saying we cannot basically shift and I don't want to say blame shift. We cannot look at, and every time we reference and we mention children, we say, no, this is the responsibility of the Department of Education, or this is the responsibility of DSD, particularly where we know that we have social crime prevention, and particularly where we know where children are in spaces of risk. We need to ensure, number one, the priority as per the Children's Act, that we take those children to a place of safety. Now, you asked earlier on, we cannot just remove. Removing is the last thing. It's so traumatic. I've been on scene with quite a few of these cases, and that's the absolute last thing that we want to do. But as things stand right now on the Western Cape, with the high levels of drug abuse and gangsterism, children are abandoned and children are at risk. Children are sleeping outside, they're going without food, they're being abused, sexually violated. Every day I'm getting hundreds, dozens of cases of children being sexually abused, going without food, are going to these homes. So I'm saying to you, at any given point, we need to ensure that our police stations, our victim-friendly rooms are adequately equipped to absorb these children. And at any given point, whether I go to SAPS at 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock, because sometimes in these drug and gang infested areas, Minister, your social workers cannot just enter even without SAPS on their own because of the risk. So this is something which, and even when we do have removals, Minister, you don't even have vehicles. Your social crime prevention is mandated to respond to such cases to ensure that that child, that minor does not get into a van, but into a vehicle. There are many times when we cannot remove because SAPS does not have the resources. That's the reality, and this is what I'm trying to say. So we cannot say that when a child is found loitering on a street corner, Western Cape, a social worker can just pick that child up. This is why we have social crime prevention. This is why we have the vehicles to actually stop, because when that child is standing on the street corner, that child is at risk of being raped, being murdered, being abducted. It is the responsibility, the primary responsibility of SAPS to ensure that child's safety, to load that child in the vehicle, take that child to the victim-friendly room, track the parents, bring the parents in, get the social worker, and the social worker will then deal with the case further. So that is a must that we have to do. If we are addressing gangsterism on the Cape Flats, we cannot wait for that child to get into a Pelapos or into the gang before we go and rescue that child. It is our responsibility, social crime prevention, to act to ensure that that child is safe. And then basically we notify DSD and we have all of those social workers on standby. I must say the social workers on the Western Cape are quite effective. They have been responding adequately. But the thing is, with our SAPS members, where all of these children are at risk and in these gangs right now, we find that SAPS members aren't even aware. And I appreciate MP's question on, don't you think it's time that some of our members gets back to school? They are not even familiar with the process in terms of what forms to have at the police station. So they don't know about the Form 22, the Form 36, how to do that. And it is needed in the Western Cape. So if we are saying we are allocating a budget of 47 million to address women and children and crime prevention, we must ensure that we have the capacity, that people are educated and empowered to actually ensure that we have value for money when it comes to the spend of 47 million. So we cannot approve a budget where there's loopholes. So this is what I'm saying when it comes to, we have to, and I'm not going to back down on this, we have to act where we see children are at risk. No more children loitering, no more children, when children are meant to be in school, that is a violation of the children's rights. And SAPS is meant to act and be first responder to that child that is vulnerable. Then the second question I just want to ask, the priority, and you're right, Minister, we agree with all those priorities, it is needed. We have two programs. We have Shanela and we have the SANDF deployment. Now, I don't understand when we say, with Shanela, we have weekly monitoring, which is awesome. Here we have a program that has been mentioned that stems from the SONA, from the president, the SANDF deployment. And 2 months in, we're saying we haven't monitored. Why? I would have liked to think that the same urgency is assigned here with this program. Shanela gets monitored weekly. SANDF 2 months and we haven't monitored.
1 minute.
We don't have an analysis when it comes to that. Thank you. So the comparison, what's the difference? Shanela, we just heard that all departments are present. They're participating. With SANDF, the minister says we cannot instruct other departments. So I'm not sure where's the difference here. Please help me understand. And then last, General Sentimulu, you spoke about the e-docket pilot. Thank you so much for this. We have been asking for this for the longest time ever. But I just want to know that we've had this program rolled out before. There was a service, if my memory, I just didn't have enough time to do the research now. There was a service provider appointed not so long ago, and monies was paid actually for this e-docket program. What happened? There was no value for money. I believe that matter is in court. Have we recovered the money spent for that program? What is the status of that? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable James. Any of the other members? I'll come back to you again if need be. General Dimpane, can I hand over to you for coordination? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Let me start with the lifestyle audits just to give comfort. SSA is only responsible to deal with the senior managers. When you look at this slide, Honorable Member, on Program 1, we do have indicators there that talks to our own internal work in terms of other members. So we are responsible for vetting and lifestyle audits of other members. SSA is concentrating on the project that is prioritizing senior managers. So we do have indicators on Program 1 that talks to all other levels in this particular regard. There is an issue on ethics and PFMA training senior managers. These are the issues that Minister spoke about, the reset. As we put this table, this on the table, members, what are the issues that we need to be concentrating on in terms of capacity at all levels? Where do we find ourselves lacking? So we will be concentrating in terms of all these other issues, collaborating, of course, with other institutions in terms of dealing with the gaps that we would have identified. To this end, the National Commissioner is planning for the induction of the newly appointed provincial commissioners, because senior managers are responsible to ensure that they lead their teams. There's ethical conduct, there is resource management, and there's knowledge in terms of this resource management. So there is a program that our training is also putting together, that each and every senior manager, whether it be a provincial commissioner, divisional commissioner who's appointed, there is an induction, and we will be collaborating with the relevant offices such as your AGSA, such as all these institutions to assist us, that we subject those that would have been newly appointed to an induction, and these areas are prioritized. Issues of ethics, issues of financial management and resource management. We do have our ethics committees, and we subject to this end senior managers who are responsible for that ethics committee. We have enrolled them with the Ethics Institute. So there are programs that are currently taking place. Myself, I'm a certified ethics officer. I've undergone a training. The ethics committee chairperson is a certified ethics officer. So we undergo those particular issues, and we want to roll this over in terms of collaborating with those institutions. Chair. So these are the areas that we are concentrating on, and we believe that with the efforts in time, we will be able to capture everyone. Issues of ethical conduct is non-negotiable. It is non-negotiable at this point in time. If we find you to have conduct yourself unethically, we will deal with you. So those are the issues that we are currently concentrating on, Chair. In terms of issues of tools of trade, we can give this committee comfort that the provincial commissioners are appointed in terms of the constitution, and they're responsible to run their provinces, and they are responsible to manage resources. There are issues that are devolved to the provincial commissioners. As I indicated, we are identifying inefficiencies, we are identifying in leadership inadequacies at some levels, and those are the things that we are focusing on to deal with issues of accountability. If we give money to the provincial commissioner, we expect to see the basic tools of trade procured, and with the speed to ensure that we do have tools of trade. So we have identified the root causes of the problems that are plaguing us. However, we do note all these issues that the members are putting on the table. Those are the issues as and when we deal with accountability, as I indicated, and monitoring, we will be improving in relation to these particular issues. The monitoring of the SNDF project, that is a priority, Honorable Member. I spoke about it yesterday in the very same meeting. So General Musikidi and the team have been required to then put together, so that together with China, so it is a program that we can continue not to monitor. So they are will be producing reports, and I believe soon, when those reports are required by portfolio committee, those reports will be produced in this particular regard. I believe General Musikidi will touch on, we have had the issues of prioritizing of issues that relates to protection of children. General Musikidi will respond to those, that we can give this committee an assurance that the vulnerable groups, the issues of GBVF, this is on top of our priority. We do have our social crime prevention units across the country that are also resourced to deal with these particular issues. But General Musikidi will expand, or if there's a need for her to also clarify on the questions of Honorable James. She will come in. I don't want to waste a bit of time, and General Mavunda on the e-docket, what has transpired in terms of this particular project, she can touch on that. And lastly, on training, are our police training colleges equipped and producing the quality of police men and women that we require? General Zulu will touch a bit on this and expand on the training of the detectives. Perhaps in that order, before we hand over back to the minister to wrap up on other issues that we might have left out, I will request General Musikidi, General Mavunda, and General Zulu on the training colleges. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you once more, Chair. Very quickly, Chairperson, if words came out wrongly in terms of the monitoring of the operations, I think as the acting is also reiterating, Honorable James, the impact assessment, it's the broader assessment that you will weigh, but I was able to reflect on the numbers because of that monitoring, because we look at every week how our operations were undertaken and what are the challenges, which other areas do we need to take our resources to, which areas we need to change in terms of the numbers. It's because of that assessment and analysis of the weekly. I think the next question of how do we distinguish between Operation Prosper and Operation Shanela. Shanela is a holistic crime prevention approach that relates to the priorities of the provincial commissioner, of the district commissioner in the whole province, the whole country. But when you look at Prosper, we have identified the flashpoints. We have hotspots provinces, number one. Within the hotspots provinces, out of the number of police stations in the Western Cape alone, we have prioritized certain police stations that are a high crime gang station, so that we implement that has been communicated on the SONA in addressing illegal mining at the illegal mining provinces for Eastern Cape and Gauteng. And Gauteng, you will also have both illegal mining and the gangs. So the distinction between these two is that where we deploy, much as there will be the Operation Shanela deployment in any other area, where there is a flashpoint on certain dimension or certain commodity that we want to address, that is where Operation Prosper is. But when we look at the holistic overview of the week's operations, we look at everything. So all these reports will come, but then what you requested earlier is to segregate your overall assessment of the province and what Prosper is doing. So you look at only these stations that are 17 priority stations in the Western Cape. I'm just making an example, but elsewhere in the country where we have identified particular police stations that are flashpoints in terms of what we want to do. Northwest, we look at Bapong areas, Rustenburg, and so forth. So we look at what impact is there in that particular space. And I know that it might look as if it's 2 months, but we came to the portfolio committee and presented that we have breakdown of